Hi guys, today I want to expand our discussion on the mysterious ancient handbag carvings. In the last two videos, I explained my hypotheses on the so-called handbags of the Neo-Assyrian reliefs from Mesopotamia during the Iron Age, and the solid stone bags of the Bronze Age Giraffe culture in ancient Iran. If you haven't watched these videos, I highly recommend you to check them out. To date, the most ancient bag-looking artifacts came from the famous Neolithic site, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. This enigmatic site is almost 12,000 years old. Its discovery completely changed the paradigm of our thoughts on the Neolithic era and the life and capabilities of our ancestors at that time. Previously, we were taught that pre-pottery Neolithic people were nomadic hunter-gatherers who didn't build permanent structures. But now we know that is not true. They actually constructed impressive large-scale megalithic buildings at many locations, with Göbekli Tepe being the most well-known. Among its oval enclosures, there are multiple T-shaped stone pillars. Some of them are 18 feet, or 5.5 meters tall. On one of the pillars, Pillar 43, it depicts three bag-like reliefs along with animals and patterns. These puzzling carvings have sparked all kinds of speculations, which I'll list later. My opinion is, in order to make a logical and convincing argument on what the bag-like objects might be, we can't simply pigeonhole and focus on the specific carvings on a single pillar. Let's keep in mind that there are a variety of reliefs on numerous pillars at Göbekli Tepe. The one with the bag design, Pillar 43, is a surrounding pillar, not a center pillar of one of the oval enclosures, and this enclosure is one of the over 20 similar stone circles. This pillar itself might have substantial meanings, but its location indicates that it's a part of the narrative of all the carvings in its enclosure D and likely interconnected with other contemporaneous oval structures. Therefore, we need to look at these artful decorations at Göbekli Tepe as a coherent story and not just fixated on a partial carving on one pillar. There must be contextual relationships with these carvings and buildings. To study this, we should learn the facts from archaeological excavations. Most, if not all, current theories of the meanings and functions of Göbekli Tepe bags were based on initial excavation results. However, in the last few years, there have been striking changes. New artifacts and findings have overturned many earlier beliefs about this site. These findings surprised archaeologists and further challenged the old thoughts on the Neolithic age. In this video, I'll show you some of the most exciting novel discoveries of Göbekli Tepe. Such information will help us to better understand this prehistoric marvel and thereby get closer to the truth about the intriguing carvings, including the handbag patterns. You ready? Let's dive in. The elaborately carved T-shaped pillars demonstrated the importance of these oval enclosures and should have special purposes. There have been a lot of conjectures on the function of these alleged bags. Some claim that these bags contain seeds from the heaven to replenish the earth with crops after the flood. Others think they were batteries carried by ancient astronauts or aliens visiting Earth. As for the overall carvings on the pillars, some say they represent astronomy constellations. Researchers from the University of Edinburgh published a paper proposing that Pillar 43 documented the Younger Dryas comet impact, which happened around 12,000 years ago, and suggested that the Göbekli Tepe enclosures may have been space observatories. Andrew Collins argues that since the pillars are roughly oriented north, they were designed towards the setting of the star Deneb, which also marked the entrance to the Milky Way's Great Rift. Most of these hypotheses interpret the reliefs with astral, celestial, or symbolic meanings. These conjectures somewhat fit the original statement from Klaus Schmidt, the late discoverer of Göbekli Tepe, who called this site a cathedral on a hill. Mr. Schmidt postulated that Göbekli Tepe was a ritual center other than a settlement, because during his long excavation, which lasted more than 25 years, there was neither evidence of a hearth to make fire nor domesticated plants or animals. Schmidt didn't think anyone lived there full time, even though the site was used and expanded for 2,000 years. Göbekli Tepe has been referred to as the oldest known temples in the world. Furthermore, the rather uniform refills of the site had prompted the proposal that these megalithic enclosures had been deliberately buried in the prehistoric period, along with the constructions of new stone circles. This deepens the conundrum of Göbekli Tepe. Why would the nomadic hunter-gatherers spend so much time and labor to move, carve, and erect complex and systematic megalithic structures, which they didn't reside in? Why would the builders intentionally bury these labor-intensive buildings afterwards? Was it ritually motivated? Meanwhile, the excavators found a wide range of stone points. The oldest pre-pottery Neolithic A types present at Göbekli Tepe include Al-Qayan, Helwan, and Aswad points. So, it's possible that people from a larger area in Levant and the Fertile Crescent congregated at Göbekli Tepe since the beginning of the Neolithic era. Why would the ancient people travel afar to visit here? If the site was not created for practical purposes, then it sure appears to have had ritualistic or celestial indications. Did hunter-gatherers come to visit their temples? As a result, we have these ritual and astronomical suppositions. Mr. Schmidt passed away in 2014. His successors, Lee Clare and his team, later dug several keyhole trenches down to the site's bedrock, several meters below the floors of the large oval buildings. By looking at the lowest layers and deposits of the site, Clare and his colleagues found new information which may rewrite prehistory yet again. These crucial digs revealed evidence of domestic houses and year-round settlements, suggesting that Göbekli Tepe was not an isolated temple visited on special occasions, but a thriving village with big buildings. The team identified a large cistern and channels to collect rainwater, key to supporting a settlement on a dry mountaintop. They found a series of round oval structures, which had been constructed upon or just above the natural limestone bedrock, bordering a small activity area that produced a sequence of hearths or fireplaces. Archaeological and stratigraphic considerations in combination with the recovered flint tool assemblage suggest that they belonged to an early occupation phase at Göbekli Tepe, most likely coinciding with the pre-pottery Neolithic A, which is 9500 to 8700 BC. Additionally, on site, there are many stone animal sculptures, hundreds of stone vessels. Some have animal carvings, thousands of grinding tools, and multiple troughs for processing wild grain for cooking porridge. The chemical residue of some huge troughs shows signs of fermentation, which points to ancient beer brewing. A great number of animal bones found here were interpreted as food remains. Pieces of human bones were recovered, as well as a human burial. This means that the hunter-gatherers of Göbekli Tepe lived here permanently. They were effective hunters and cultivators, or at least had strategies to gather large quantities of wild grain. Last but not least, a review of the available evidence made the archaeologists think that previously assumed deliberate burying or backfilling might not be accurate. Other explanations appear increasingly likely, including inundation from buildings collapsing and eroded deposits from higher-lying nodes and slopes of the mound. From bird's-eye view photos, we can see that the excavated portion of Göbekli Tepe is indeed at mid-hill, not on top of the plateau, and might have accumulated sediments from higher grounds. These collapse and erosion processes would also account for the highly fragmented nature of human and animal bones contained in the backfill, the mixed material from different Neolithic eras, and the heterogeneity of previous radiocarbon measurements made on organic samples from this matrix. In short, these new insights tell a dramatically different story. Instead of being a seasonal religious or ritual center, Göbekli Tepe was, per Mr. Clare's words, a fully fledged settlement with permanent occupation. It's changed our whole understanding of the site. So, Göbekli Tepe was a long-lived, unpopulated Neolithic town. Considering the diverse tools from other cultures and all kinds of animal bones discovered here, it might also have been a popular trading center or even a cosmopolitan. Frankly, I have always found the claim that hunter-gatherers were solely nomads with no long-term settlements impractical. These groups consisted not only strong and mobile hunters, but also young children, pregnant women, and the elderly. Besides the hunters, the group needed people to gather, cook, make clothes and tools, set up shelters, and of course, care for the needy, young, infirm, and injured. Can you imagine a family with older relatives and infants constantly moving around on foot while pursuing animals year after year? Every night, they would have to find a safe and protected spot to cook and sleep in the wild. Granted, our ancestors from the Stone Age were way hardier than us. This type of demanding and hectic lifestyle still doesn't seem sustainable. More importantly, what if they killed a big game animal and/or gathered a lot of wild cereals? Where would they process and store the food if they were always on the go? When they moved, did they carry their water, cooking pots, vessels, and grinding stones with them? Please don't forget that based on current evidence, these people had neither draft animals nor wheels. Every possession they wanted to keep would need to be carried or hauled. Years of accumulation of tools, containers, and dried foods could be fairly heavy. It would make much more sense to first scout and find a resourceful place, then move the entire group and establish secure residences, at least seasonal ones, that are close to fresh water. Areas close to rivers and lakes would be guaranteed to attract animals. If hunter-gatherer tribes found an ideal place with fresh water, good wild grains or legumes, and plentiful animals year-round, then why would they ever move away? It would have been pragmatic and conducive for hunter-gatherers to organize labor, resources, and time to build permanent settlements for their families and tribes. Göbekli Tepe might have been such a settlement. By the way, I think it likely had surrounding walls too, as a fortified town. These recent findings of Göbekli Tepe fit into the bigger picture of the majestic Neolithic cultures in this region. Göbekli Tepe is not a unique site with T-shaped pillars and oval enclosures. Turkish archaeologists have unearthed at least a dozen similar hilltop sites. Karahan Tepe, as an example, concentrated in southern Turkey, roughly between the Upper Bilik and the Upper Chopra rivers, dating from around the same time period. These sites were given a collective name, Tastaplar, meaning stone hills. The other contemporary sites make this groundbreaking Neolithic account even more interesting. Göbekli Tepe is not an outlier, but a significant piece of the Stone Hill culture, which were large permanent settlements equipped with water cisterns built by hunter-gatherers. Now, with this new information in mind, let's zoom in on the decorative carvings on the pillars at Göbekli Tepe. Most of them are animal reliefs. They are naturalistic and correspond to the fauna of the period: boars, snakes, foxes, wild cats, aurochs, gazelles, birds, scorpions, spiders, quadrupeds, and many more. It's worth noting that plenty of animals look hostile with big fangs. The range of animals illustrated is truly amazing. No wonder Göbekli Tepe was once called a Stone Age zoo by Klaus Schmidt. Some of these pillars present figurative and anthropomorphic details with human arms, hands, belts, and clothing. One such anthropomorphic pillar looked like having a fox in his elbow. Some researchers argue that since the carvings and the iconography of the oval structures are exclusively male, These enclosures were designed for and used by only male hunters. These reliefs on the pillars, joined by the animal sculptures and animal carvings on stone vessels, in my opinion, are quite fitting for a hunter-gatherer town. It reminds me of the animal heads mounted on the walls at Yellowstone. In traditional hunting camps, stag heads, hanging ducks, and other trophy mounts are prolific. Another case that comes to mind is an ultra-elite club in New York City, the Explorers Club. Famous members have included a former U.S. president, princes of different countries, and an astronaut. From photos we can see, its decor features many of their prized pieces to honor accomplishments in exploration: cheetahs, deer heads, a tiger, lion, a polar bear, elephant tusks, penguin, and more. Hey, their polar bear and lion show their fangs too. The explorers undoubtedly wanted to show how ferocious these beasts were, and consequently what incredible feats they have done to overpower these dangerous animals. It's highly possible that the Göbekli Tepe people might have had the same idea when they carved fanged boars and big cats. In all likelihood, Neolithic hunters and 20th century prestigious explorers shared something in common. They were proud of their extraordinary achievements involving subduing these big game animals, and would like to showcase them. Human nature is very consistent. The motives behind our behaviors today might not be all that different from people who lived 12,000 years ago. Art generally comes from our life and depictions of human experiences. Painters and sculptors usually portray the sceneries they observed, the people they knew, stories and events they lived through, heard of, or were interested in, especially in the early times. I believe cave art and stone carvings probably served as documentation methods prior to the invention of writing. That being said, I propose that at Göbekli Tepe, the large pillars of the old-way enclosures, the ones adorned by mostly animal reliefs, might be commemorations of the hunters' major hunting trips, game accomplishments, and possibly their best hunters. They could be their Hall of Fame. Perhaps each pillar was dedicated to a successful hunting event, like a storyboard, which recorded the animals they saw and were captured. Occasionally even scenes were included. These round enclosures were more likely to correspond with the hunters who lived there instead of having celestial or astronomy meanings. Maybe these structures were the hunters' clubs or their gathering communal chambers. There is a possibility that these oval buildings were also used for ritualistic or religious functions. The hunters may have prayed to their gods there. And what type of gods would hunters worship? Hunting gods, most likely, right? It's more natural and logical to postulate that hunters would pray to certain hunting gods who may grant them more praise and a safe return to their families, instead of documenting or praying to the star constellation or the Milky Way. Plus, I haven't seen a satisfactory explanation that can pair up the various carvings with constellations associated with their positions on the night sky. As for the proposal claiming that Pillar 43 depicts the Younger Dryas comet impact, and that the enclosures were star observatories, to me it seems forced. I don't see an obvious comet indication on that pillar. Do you? And this conjecture neither mentions nor explains the other carvings on the three sides of the pillar. Moreover, these buildings might have had roofs originally, as they wouldn't work as star observatories. Even if there were no roofs, would a hunter-gatherer community invest so much energy and effort to build grand observatories that do not really represent what they do and who they were? I doubt it. It seems counterintuitive. On the other hand, my proposal that these decorated enclosures were hunting-themed exhibition halls or temples that memorialized and honored the hunters' most notable trips, big games killed, hero hunters or hunting gods, basically their livelihood, sounds more reasonable. Wouldn't you agree? These ancient people might have done elaborate manhood rituals in these big oval chambers, prayed for their upcoming hunting endeavors, celebrated their hunting trips with beer and food, as well as just surviving such ordeals. Not much different from what people do nowadays. In such a new scenario, do you think the handbag-looking reliefs on top of Pillar 43 were really bags or something else? This video is getting a bit long, so I wrap it up here. I may make another video specifically dealing with these Göbekli Tepe bags. If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and share with others. You can also support me on Patreon, which is a monthly charge, or on Buy Me a Coffee. I appreciate your support. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.